start with how to use dimensions to define your sketch. So on a lighter note, not lighter, just to let you guys know, it's better to use when you are building a piece. The more relations you use, the less dimensions you're going to need to fully define it. So you're going to see that what I just said later on, what I'm talking about. So let's start off by just showing you quickly how to use dimensions to define your sketch. So we'll start off by just making a simple rectangle that's 6 inches by 4 inches. So one thing to note, and that you guys have to always remember, is like, for example, in my case, my default is set to mmgs. So you're gonna need to always check your units when you start. So if I'm telling you it's in inches, it shouldn't be mmgs. It should actually click here and you go inches as well. So when you are given assignments or a project to do or something like that, just make sure you're always checking whenever you start a new piece which units you're using, and as well go to your options and make sure you do document and set your drafting standards as well to match what's at the bottom there. So in this case, ANSI. Press OK, and it's going to work. It's going to be a lot easier than in the middle of your drawing changing it, because then it might not convert most of the pieces back and forth. So just remember to always check your units when you start the file, and as well always check the dimension styles, which you could set up later on, but it's much easier if you do it the first step. So let's go start make that rectangle. Let's go rectangle. So in this case here, I'm going to start, like I told you before, from the top plane. Sorry, there we go, it's working. Sorry about that. From the top plane. And now let's go check from one corner. I'm going to go to the next corner. So in this case here, I did tell you it's going to be 6 by 4, but I don't want you trying to get 6 by 4 right away, because this is the whole point of adding dimensions to define your sketch. So now that we've added our rectangle, how do we go to the middle? I could just do spacebar as well, and I could do trace or just click here, the little icon, and it's going to center it for you. So now we have the rectangle. You notice at the bottom left corner, it's saying that it's underdefined. So like in the other one, that means that if I try to move pieces, so if I move this line, you see I'm able to adjust it. And if I move this one, I'm able to adjust it as well. The only place that it's locked to is this corner here from the origin. So these two are staying in the actual position. We're going to go on relations as well. So this is just a little this is coming up. So now we're going to go now to use our smart dimensions. So from this rectangle that we built with any units, we go use in our sketch on top where it says smart dimension. I click on it, and then you're going to notice that I'm able to do sketches. So if I had the line selected like I did before, then I did smart dimensions, you notice right away it linked it to that dimension. But if you didn't have it selected and you go smart dimensions, you need to go choose a line. So for example, I could choose this one here, and I said this one here will be 4 inches, and this one here will be 6 inches. And like that, by just using 2 dimensions, we were able to fully define our rectangle. So now if I try to move it in any way, hit the escape button to get out of the command, by the way. If I try to move anything, you notice that it's fully constrained to that object. Now that we have our 6 by 4 box, you notice that once it became fully defined, that it went from a blue color to a black color. So let me just show you. I'm going to get rid of these 6. And now you notice that our line right over here, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but it's blue right here and the rest are black. Why? It's because I'm missing one dimension, which is the bottom one, the 6. Because if I pull this line here, you see I'm able to move it, which means that it's not constrained. So this is one of the ways to know if it's constrained is by the color, and if you're trying to move it, if it adjusts as well. So we're going to go add that dimension back. To 6 o'clock, it's a 6 o'clock, sorry, to 6. And then you notice right away that we have it set that it's 6 by 4 and the box is correct. So now let's go add another rectangle again, like I showed earlier. Rectangle again. Let's go from this corner this time. and let's draw, oops, and let's draw it in the other direction. I hit the pan button, so with the scroller. If that happens to you, just hit the space bar, and again, you could just do normal 2 or just do Control 8, and it's going to flatten it again for you as well. So now I have my second rectangle, and you notice again, the one that is fully constrained is black, and the one that I just made, which isn't, is blue. The only one that's constrained are these two lines because it's constrained to the origin. Let's go add a dimension again, like we did before. By adding a dimension here, I can make this one as well 6. And this one here as well, I could add it 4. And our sketch has gone from underdefined to fully defined. Now there's one more thing I want to show you, then I'm going to explain again about fully defined, underdefined, is you could also have the option of being overdefined. So what does that mean? So right now I have a dimension of 4, 6, 6, 4. So this is okay. If I add another dimension here, for example 6, it's kind of useless because we see it here, but as you notice it says make it driven. So I press OK, and now my drawing becomes rebuilt. It's kind of not needed. Sorry about that. I got kicked out there. Edit sketch. So we don't need this dimension. Why? It's because we already have the dimension here, so it's kind of repeating it twice. So when would a dimension help you in this case? This one, it's kind of useless. But let's say I would be making a triangle. So let me just make a triangle like so. It's a triangle like this. Now let's go try the dimensions. Let's say I want this one here to be an angle of 60. This one here to be an angle of 40. Oh, sorry, 80, sorry. Which means the remaining one up here should be an angle of 40. We don't need it, but if you wanted to have it as a reference, I could click the two lines here. And you notice right now, it's saying that it's a driven dimension. So it's just there for reference. You don't need it, but if you notice, it's also going to be in a lighter color, showing that it's not necessary to have that dimension there, because we already know that if this is 80 and this is 60, automatically the top of our triangle will be 40 as well. So that's what I'm trying to tell you about not like over dimensioning, and as well adding dimensions that are not needed because it's already given somewhere else. Good. To delete a dimension, guys, just click with your mouse. Oops. Click with your mouse and just press delete. Oops. Come, delete, delete, delete. So you can delete your dimensions. So again, I'm going to talk about fully defined, underdefined. So when you start a sketch, if something is fully defined, like our circle, I'll just draw a quick circle. Right now you see I have a circle in the origin, but it's saying that it's underdefined. What am I missing, guys? All I'm missing is the dimension of the circle itself. So if I go put the 7, not 47, 7, you see our drawing becomes fully defined. So there's a couple ways of knowing again, how do I know it's fully defined? First one, the object is all black. Second way of knowing is at the bottom of our screen it says fully defined, right over here. Another way of also knowing it is that if I exit the sketch, right next to the actual sketch name, there's no symbol. If there's a minus, it means it's underdefined. If there's a plus, it means it's overdefined. So you'll see here, for example, there's nothing next to our sketch, which means it's fully defined. If I do edit and I go back and I delete this dimension, you see the little minus symbol? That's showing me that I'm missing either dimension or relation to make it fully defined. So if I were to exit, right next to my name, you see it has the actual one. The plus symbol as well means over constraint. I'm not going to show you guys the plus. You'll see it while you're making assemblies, where most times you'll get it over constrained as well. So just keep in mind that when it's fully defined, you won't be able to move that object in any way. Sorry, that goes a little too fast. You won't be able to move that object in any way whatsoever, so you know that it's working. I'm going to show you some sketches later on that once it's fully with relations, and you change the dimension, you'll see that everything still stays intact and it doesn't ruin that drawing that we're working on. All right, so another thing I want to show you, another example is with dimensions. With dimensions is, let's do an ellipse, for example. So let's go use an ellipse. All right, and again, I want to go do two of them. So we're going to go from the side here, click the origin. Let's do our major, and let's do our minor one as well. Again, the major is usually the first one, and the minor is the second one. So now that we've added this, we're going to go add our dimensions. I told you the major is going to be 100 millimeters this time, and the minor is going to be 40. So if I haven't put no dimensions right now, and I were to go change it right over here, it's okay. Nothing really changed because I have no dimensions. So the computer, it's still unitless somewhat. Like go back here, change this back to ISO. If you don't change the ones in the settings, your dimensions will be not looking correctly. So once you change the standard, they'll either go horizontal, vertically, depending on what you're working with. So now we have our sketch again. So it says here that it's underdefined. So we have to add a couple things. First things we got to add is what? We got to go add our major one. So we said from here to here. See, as you're doing dimensions, you notice that if I go horizontal, if I go up, I get a dimension this direction. But in this case, I don't want this dimension. I want the one that's showing us this way, like this. So now from here, I could put my dimension. I could have also done dimensions from one corner to the next, like so, which gives me the thing. And here, I'm going to go type in what would it be. If I want it to be 100, it should be 50. So 50, 50 would make it 100. So whatever number I'm using, you put the dimension in half. So now let's do the next one. From here to here, dimension. So here's my other dimension. This one here I said should be 40 overall, so we're going to make it 20. So now we have our piece. But you see, we're still not fully defined. Why is that? It's because we're missing one dimension that's not given to us, in this case, is which way we're going to angle the piece. So if I go to dimension, and I just go from here to here, and I just put this one over here, and then let's just say I put this to 15, the angle that we're using, you'll see now it's fully defined. This is only happens if when we're doing the ellipse, it's at an angle. If I would have done the ellipse using the constraints, let me just erase this. This is a pop-up saying, are you sure you want to erase it? Say yes. Let's just show you now if I would have done it the other way. If I just would have done here, the ellipse, and I would have stuck to vertical lines or horizontal, and here I would have just put, like we said before, I could go as close as possible, but just remember if I want 100, it would be 50 there. And this, let's go add our dimensions. From here to here should be 50. I think that should have been 100, but it's okay. The numbers we could play with. And then from here to here, oops, delete that. Let's do it again. 50. The same one twice. See what happens when you don't sleep? From here to here. And this one here, we'll just put it at 20. So we have our piece. And all we have to do is we could do a relation here, just to show you. And I could have just done this one here with this point here, and just make it horizontal. And it's going to fully constrain it. Because all that's missing is just, it wants to know what angle you're going to place it at. And if I'm making them horizontal, that's all you need for it to be fully defined. All right, so that's what I want to show you guys for adding dimensions with the sketch.